So we want you guys to really understand that we're pushing for a new change at SFPD. We're pushing for new policies. We're pushing for things to be right in this community. Because it shouldn't be to where young black men and women are afraid to walk down the street and not knowing their fate if they're going to make it home. That's what happened to Mario Woods. This is what happened to this mother right here, as you see her. So all this political stuff that's in front and that's out there, let's put that to the side. Let's make it about Mario Woods and his family. Let's not make it a political statement to where we want to, show in front of the cameras. That's not what this is about. And we ask you, the media, the community, the public at large, to support that. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I will open up the questions. Any one of the lawyers who worked on this case. It's been a collective effort. Largely, I've been away in trial for a couple of weeks, so I haven't been around. But my legal staff, the lawyers here, have all done extraordinarily good work in getting things done. So let me start the question out. I see my good friend Dick Lee back here.
John, when your colleague was explaining the significance of a new video, who was on mic, could you explain again the significance of this third video?
Well, the third video, the importance of, number one, is new. The third video had not been seen before, but I think it comes from another angle that had not been seen before, but it gives you a clear view that at the time the shooting took place, Mario's hands were down at his side. And I know that KQED kind of give you that as well, but this is a more clear view than that. And so that's the importance from our point of view, is that he was not committing a dangerous act. He was not threatening the police officer at the time. He was walking slowly, and it was the officer who created the confrontation by jumping in front of him. Exactly. And then the slightest movement, a walking movement, a hand movement, resulted in these shots being fired, which is fundamentally wrong.
What were the other options that they had?
The other options the police?
The other options the police had.
Well, not a police officer. I know that shooting was not one of them, because he was contained. He was small. And it seems to me that he was in a situation where he was contained. They had tried the beanbag that undoubtedly could have been tried again. Exactly. And so my point of view, they had pepper spray. There were options that were available, but the most important thing is that they had time. They had time, they had space, they had the ability to contain. Those are important areas, particularly when you don't have to create a confrontation. There was no need to rush in. The world population at large was not in danger. And there was time, there was space, there was opportunity to contain without creating a confrontation. And more importantly, you have verbal commands. The most important tool that an officer has is the ability to communicate. You can do that in a loud, yelling, screaming voice to agitate, or you can assess whether or not this person may be disoriented and speak to them in a calm manner to try to get some clear understanding. So if none of that was occurring, it was just a matter of shooting him with the beanbag as he wobbled away, then he was shot multiple times.
Tom, did this video come from another bystander?
Yes.
Did you seek it out? So we can pull
Well, we started out. We looked at video cameras. We looked at all kinds of videos in the community that other people may have seen it. So we have done that as part of our investigative work. And as part of that, this came to our attention, and the person does not want to be known and doesn't want to gather reports at their door. So, but we have it, and we're certainly making it available to be on our webpage, John Burris Office.
Mr. Burris, we need more clarity on the length of the incident being from the time that the police made contact at the time that she was shot.
You mean in terms of that portion of the street?
No, I'm sorry. So from the time that police first made contact with Mr. Woods to the time that he was shot, we get more clarity on how.
I don't have any clear information about that. What I have essentially is what is reflected in the video. We know that he was walking slowly, but the beanbag, kind of gathers himself, and he walks not 10 yards, and then the police jumps in front of him, in essence, creating this sort of confrontation. But that happened real quickly, so I don't have time. But I said the events unfolded pretty quickly there.
You spoke to the police department. Have they given you an explanation why they said what happened when the video showed?
No, I have not spoken to the police chief about this. I saw and read his explanation. I know there was a community meeting that was said about it. From my point of view as a lawyer, and I present more from a legal point of view, I heard what he had to say, took that into consideration, got our own individuals, thought there's a contradiction in that, and we move forward as lawyers based upon that information. And that doesn't matter what the chief says, frankly.
How does it feel though? Like, what were your thoughts when you saw this video after hearing what the chief said?
How I saw it, I was outraged by it. I mean, it's horrible. It's horrific to see one person getting killed in a hail of bullets, when at the time it does not appear that they've done much to justify that. So it's horrific. From my point of view, having been in another case out in Antigua where a young man was shot by a number of shots, I've seen more than one. But this was even more shots. So I don't know that I've seen a case where that many shots were fired at a person who seemingly was engaged in minor, insignificant contact at the time he was shot.
But how does it feel seeing that after and then comparing it with what the police chief said and knowing the police chief was?
Well, number one, I'm sort of insulted by the chief's comments that he would make a comment to justify and support the police officer's conduct so quickly, particularly when in the video he had, if he had looked at it closely, he would have seen that the person's hand did come up until after the officer had shot at him. So the effort to support the police with limited information is unfortunate and hurtful to the overall issues of accountability and transparency and legitimacy in this community. Because if a police officer engaged in this level of brutality, if you will, and the chief immediately supports that, well, you can't have confidence in him. You can't trust things that he says, and you certainly can't trust the integrity of any investigation that he is engaged in when there's clear evidence that contradicts what he said. So from the community's point of view, they should be outraged. And I liken this to in Chicago now, having been a prosecutor there and a lawyer there, I understand the dynamics of Chicago, but thinking about what happened there, that it looks as if a political process prevented the mayor from coming forward and showing a video of a young man, of Laquan Martin being killed because it might have had political consequences. Well, I view what the mayor says, not the mayor, the chief says, as an effort to stop any real discussion about it. It is to make all of us think that what they did was legitimate and that he deserved what he got because it was his conduct that caused it. And that is to make sure that no one else thinks and give it a third thought to what is taking place because they believe and want the public to believe that Mario got what he deserved because he started. And this is what's unfortunate about it. And it's why the community is outraged, and they should be outraged with the comments by the chief, given what had happened. So that's my reaction.
So do you think the chief should resign?
The chief has been, I know there's a lot of efforts discussion about the chief. I think when a chief's credibility is called into question, whether or not they have been duplicitous about a fact pattern that has significant community interest, I don't know that chief can legitimately hold that job in a credible way.
So, yeah, you think you should resign?
Well, from what I believe, you make false statements about an event that you know at the time you made the statement was false, then of course you should resign. Now, that's a fact, that's something for him to deal with.
So you're not going to complain if the Associated Press reports Burris says Chief Sutter should resign?
I'm not going to complain about anything I said. What I said is said.
Since you don't have the actual complaint, what are you seeking in the city?
Well, the complaint should be, obviously, we don't have monetary damages in it. damages would be according to proof. The question, what's the value of a life is lost. Under a hail of bullets to a family that loved him, that is something a jury would have to determine. But certainly monetary damages at the end are important. But at the beginning, now, it's important that there's an appreciation and an acknowledgement of what happened. And that's undoubtedly the most important aspect of it. And the lawsuit provides a framework for us to deal with these particular issues. So from my point of view, it's proving up that what happened was unlawful, excessive force was there, and then at some later point, the questions also part of the lawsuit is the question of whether or not this conduct that happened here is reflective of a pattern and practice of illegal policies that exist that are unconstitutional on their face. Now, one could say if you shoot somebody 20 times and the policy allows you to do that when you don't have facts, you don't have force in front of you, that's an unconstitutional policy. So the question is there a policy that allows for this to occur? If so, that policy is unconstitutional, and we will be seeking to have that policy modified in the course of the litigation. Let me ask you.
I wanted to know, what do we do to get charges brought against the officers, and when will the officers' names be released?
Well, the officers' names should be released. That's a question of transparency. I think officers' names should be released. I don't see why they should be not. We don't have them at this time. Ultimately, we will get them. But I think the community should continue to make a request for those names to be released. As it relates to the prosecution of a case, unfortunately, it's not something I can control. If I had my druthers, I would prosecute. Unfortunately, I don't. The district attorney has the right to prosecute in state court. Those are criminal violations that could occur. We've seen this not very frequently in cases. And also you have the federal civil rights violations, that criminal side that can cause prosecution. That doesn't happen often. We did have it in the Johann Messer, the Oscar Grant case. We did have it there, and certainly in other jurisdictions, some jurisdictions that allow for criminal prosecution. But that also is a question of the district attorney's office in conducting their investigation, and then they can file criminal charges, as well as the U.S. attorney. I think each of these institutions should be put on notice that they should conduct the kind of investigation that consider whether criminal charges should be filed. If I were in a position to do it, I would file criminal charges, period. Murder charges.
Do you think, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, can you speak to your office's previous interactions with the San Francisco Police Department on the release of officers' identities in an officer-involved shooting case?
It has been a hard fight from time to time. We've had many cases with the San Francisco Police Department. They have not willingly given names to us, but because of litigation that we're in, we frequently get those names. Now, I think the release of those names are political public policy questions, but I don't think you have to go to a lawsuit to get that done. At the end of the day, public record request can get that as well, but someone has to go forward with that, and we will get them in due course.
You were able to force the release of names in Congress.
Right. Dante, we wait on that. Yeah. So I know it can be done. This is a complaint itself, so it can be done. I think that the more interesting issue and important issue is not as much the names per se, it's really the criminal prosecution of these officers, because it's the conduct that's important that, to me, that requires the public to have confidence that that police officers' conduct of this kind will not go unlooked at and not evaluated. So the names are important, but the prosecution is more important.
Are you aware of a pattern by this police of presenting evidence at these town hall meetings that turns out to not be bared out by facts, as it appears here showing this case?
I haven't had any talking on the other case. Yes.
Good morning. In response to your question, yes, we've seen, for example, in the Alex Nieto case, there were statements that were made around what took place and what didn't take place, and omissions as it relates to what the police department knew in terms of the way Alex was behaving that day. One of the patterns we definitely see with the department, not just here, but in most of these cases in different places, is that there's a smear campaign about the victim of the police misconduct, police abuse, in an effort to get the public not to care about what happened to that particular victim. And we saw that here. You know, before any facts can come out as it relates to videotapes, you know, we start hearing about the person's background. Well, the officers' names aren't even being released, and we can't find out about their background, but we're hearing about the victim's background. That's not justice, and that's not fair.
You know, the pattern that Mr. Point is talking about is sort of a demonization of the victim, and it goes to the very issue of demonizing the person to the point that the public doesn't really care. In a situation like this, where you've got the person shot down like he's a man, like he was put down as if he was an animal, it seems to me that all fair-minded people would be concerned about that, regardless of what that person's background. And that's the point we want to make sure is very clear.
Do you have any thoughts on stun guns? The chief says that had his officers been equipped with stun guns, that may have made a difference.
Look, I've been involved in a lot of cases with stun guns. Tasers.
Right.
Let's start with tasers. I've been involved in a lot of cases with tasers. I know they don't happen in San Francisco, and that's a political question here, which I'm not going to go down. Say I've had cases involving stun guns. Stun guns can be used effectively, but they can also be used in a negative way. I've had cases where people have died as a consequence of being tasered, and so there's always a question of tasers and how they're used. Many cities have them, and I have been involved in many cases with them. So, and how you use it.
Is there a template in the city that
Is
there a template in the city that does this right with regards to the situation that you think that San Francisco should be? In terms of a situation like this, that there's a policy in place and training in place, is there that San Francisco could look towards?
Well, San Francisco, like all police departments, have what they call post-training. That is police officer standards that all officers go through. So San Francisco does that like everyone else. So it's not the training that's an issue, it's the practice. And you know, you can have the best training and written policies in the world, but that doesn't mean that people follow them when they're supposed to. And so, you know, here's a question of shooting, not shooting. I'm sure the training is that you're supposed to shoot when you have imminent danger in front of you. But that doesn't mean you do it because they didn't have imminent danger, they shot anyway. So, like all officers were shot, you're supposed to have imminent danger, or it's like your life or the life of someone else is in imminent danger. So that's the standard, and that's what the training is. And I know San Francisco has that level of training, but it has nothing to do with what actually happens, because officers violate their training all the time.
Are you going to turn this video over to the SFPD? Do you have an obligation to say, hey, this is some evidence?
This is part of our effort here. We will talk to San Francisco about it, but that's not something I'm going to do regularly. But it is our work product right now. Any others?
Yeah, so this was began, we are told, because Mr. Woods matched the description of a suspect in a stabbing. Have we heard from this stabbing victim?
We have not. We've tried to make efforts to find out what's the scope of that. I think that I don't disagree that if the officers had information that he was a potential person involved in a crime, they certainly have a right to investigate that and follow legitimate police procedures. That's not the point. The point is because that person has been accused of, you believe that that information had not been resolved, does not then mean you get to use deadly force without basis in doing so.
What I'm asking is, are we confident that this didn't happen?
We're not confident that we're not. What's the whole question? Yes.
Did anybody see a knife in his hand on the video?
No, on the video you do not see any knife in his hand. You see his hands down on all the video, and then after the shooting, it comes up. Okay. But you do not see him lunge at the officers, run at the officer with anything in his hand. He doesn't even do anything for the officer. So that part, now, if there was a knife, it certainly wasn't being used in a threatening way at the time, nor had it wasn't being displayed.
Is that a concern for you that the knife may not have been there at all?
Well, obviously that's a factor to consider in any case. The question is, at the time the shooting took place and when he was killed, was the knife being displayed in a threatening manner to the officer? The mere presence of a knife does not justify the use of deadly force. You have to do something with that knife. So we're real clear that at the time of the shooting, that he did nothing with anything with his hands. So that would not justify the use of deadly force.
This is sort of a gruesome question, but you mentioned 20 wounds. Were you able to determine that they were in fact 20, that meant 20 shots, or did some wounds?
Well, I understand the question. The question is whether or not there was, of the 20 wounds, or any of them entry and exit wounds, so therefore it's not 20, it
Right.
might be 8.
Right.
Whatever.
How many times was he shot?
Yeah, that's what we were trying to figure out. We're not pathologists by any way. We expect that to come out, but we can count to 20. And, some of those may have been exit wounds. And I haven't seen a lot of bodies. I mean, I can tell. But right now we know they're 20. And that's not surprising to us, given that there were 5 officers we believe all who shot. So that would not surprise me that there would be 20 shots.
Just a clarification again, are you calling for the chief to resign?
Well, as I've said, that there's plenty of evidence of his lack of clarity, or that in my own mind, the chief who does not become clear and they're giving out information, they should not be chief. And so to the extent that there's real issues here about it, we will not defend you to resign.
Do you believe he's been duplicitous, or is he just misinformed?
Well, I can't judge what the chief says or not. All I know is what the chief said in reference to looking at a video that was designed to cover for the officers. Well, it seems to me that should not have been done, which means that was a leap that should not have been made without having more information. So the overall objective, whether it was true or not, was to cover for the officers. Well, to me, that's disingenuous. If you're trying to cover for officers who shot someone 20 times without really knowing all the basic facts, or if there were in fact they were inconsistent with having shot 20 times, shooting this person. Those are mine. Okay?